Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Let's get this done. So. Hare Krishna. I can't remember who I was talking to, one of my godbrothers, or I can't remember because on some days on the phone, I talk to a few devotees, and someone was telling me that they were traveling, and someone came up to them and said, "Oh, you're one of those Haribol people." So I'm not on like a crusade about this, but and I tried to, gather as much respect in all circumstances for other persons, other living entities, especially devotees. But when His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, began this movement, we used to call it the Hare Krishna movement. And when there would be an article, or someone would, comment about a devotee, they'd say, "Oh, there goes one of those Krishnas," or "There goes one of those Hare Krishnas." So, just seemingly a small thing, but it's a point that we have to understand the mind and the mood of our Samstapaka Acharya, our founder Acharya, our eyes for the ISKCON society, and bigger than the ISKCON society, for our Krishna consciousness. And that mood of Srila Prabhupada was, and I had that fortune on his arrangement only, to be around him on and off for 6.5 years, and 385 days, like most of the day. And, none of it, no, except for Gurudas sometimes, or a few times Srila Prabhupada, something happened that was really good, and, like in the West they say, they have these different cheers, like hooray, or some vulgar things, and the Vedic cheer is Jai Ho, right? Jai Ho, like victory, Jai Ho, or Haribol, like it went really well. It's kind of like a cheer. And of course, there's something in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about Lord Chaitanya, who is God, who is the biggest of all personalities, and He's speaking to us and saying, chant the names of God. But Lord Chaitanya doesn't speak in English. He speaks either in Sanskrit or Bengali. Of course, he spoke other languages, as we know. Lord Chaitanya could speak tiger language, all the languages of birds and various beasts. The tiger, and he also spoke elephant language. Remember, in Jharkhand forest, he got them both. He spoke dog language, he got that dog to remember the pastime of who was that? The devotee Shivananda. Anybody remember the pastime of Shivananda Sen and the dog?
You get the dog to chant too. Lord Chaitanya got the dog to chant.
Anybody remember the detail?
He was feeding the dog.
Well, how did it start?
He was taking care of the dog on the trail.
What happened was that
Dog disappeared.
as they were going from Mayapur to Jagannath Puri to see Lord Chaitanya, and then as they were going, just in the beginning, this dog started to follow along with them. And generally, in India, people who have no culture, they'll throw a stone at the dog. People who have culture, the dogs engage in dirty activities. They'll eat filthy things and they'll be in filth. So you don't let them in their house. You don't touch them, because if you touch them, they're dirty. Because we're engaged in suchi activities. So Shivananda Sen, the dog wanted to come on a boat, because there are so many rivers between Mayapur and Jagannath Puri. When you're going, there's so many little, even small streams, and so there are little boats or big boats. And they charge a fare for everybody. It wasn't much, it was like panas. I don't remember. Pana is a small conch shell, and so it was like 5 or 10 panas. And he treated the dog just like devotee. And when the dog tried to follow them onto the boat to go with them, the boatman says, "No dog." And Shivananda said would give them the money for the dog. And then he started to feed him, as Mataji was saying. And one night, what happened?
The dog disappeared, and he looked everywhere, and he found the dog with Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah, the dog disappeared, and this is actually a little bit mirrors the pastime of Krishna disappearing with his friend Sudama. Well, not disappearing, but not coming back. So Shivananda Sen, he didn't eat, and then he sent all the devotees to go look, where is this dog? Where is this dog? So he cared, because we were talking about caring for devotees. This devotee's son is not doing well, so this is the natural. Loka samasta supano bhavantu sarve jana supano bhavu. This is the natural disposition of a person who's not influenced or receding influence of Raja and Tamagun. They actually have feelings for the well-being of other living entities. And Shivananda Sen was superlative. He fasted. All the other devotees went and looking. And then they arrived in Jagannath Puri, and lo and behold, what was happening?
Lord Chaitanya was feeding the dog green mango pulp and getting the dog to chant.
Well, it wasn't mango pulp. It's in English, in Indian English. When you have the coconut, we see coconut mostly, like where it's powder, it's like a pulp inside. It's hard. But then it starts, in the beginning, it's just pure water. And then as that matures, it gets kind of mucousy, like it's kind of a quite rubbery type of thing. And it's translucent. Then it gets a little bit white, and that's called the meat or the pulp. In Indian English, they'll call it the meat of the coconut or the pulp of the coconut. So someone had given Lord Chaitanya, and he was throwing the coconut pulp to him. The dog was catching it. And then, what was Lord Chaitanya doing?
The dog went back to God, but he got the dog to chant, right?
Yes, he was saying, chant Govinda, chant Govinda. And to the amazement of all the devotees, the dog was going, Govinda, 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 Govinda. And in front of everyone, that dog achieved a spiritual body. And in front of everyone, that dog went back to God. So this is compassion, free from material designation. So I thought I would talk a little bit about, we're talking about distributing the Bhagavata, and so talk a little bit about Srila Prabhupada's books, and this book, Nectar of Devotion. So today, everybody here, they're on the path of devotional service. We don't have any visitors who have no acquaintance. not to like embarrass anybody or to like demean anybody. I hope everybody, and I can ask show of hands, but I hope everybody has read this book at least once. There's a section here talking about how a devotee doesn't read. A person who's progressing in Krishna consciousness is advised that there are 64 categories of activities that they should avoid. The title of this book is Nectar Devotion. Does anybody remember the subtitle? The subtitle. The title is The Nectar of Devotion. In Sanskrit or Bengali, what is it called? Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu. So Sindhu means? You know, because you know Bengali. Huh? Ocean. Vast ocean. Unlimited ocean. And Bhakti means? Devotion. Yes, devotional service. As opposed to when you perform bhakti or puja, which is very different. Puja is for material gain, but bhakti is service that anyala, vilasata, sunyam, jnana, karma, avartam, that we aim to be transparent. That a devotee does service simply to evoke the pleasure in the person they're serving. That's bhakti. To see the needs of their object of reverence and to see that that person, in our case of course is Krishna or Lord Chaitanya, or through the via medium of the spiritual master, that they're pleased. They're pleased. And not for the anyavilas, jnana karma, not for the point of gaining anything or even recognition, but so bhakti, and then the next word is bhakti. Sanskrit, what is the title in Sanskrit or Bengali? Say it slowly. Bhakti.
Rasa.
Okay, so the next word, if you take them word by word, so and make them into words. Bhakti.
Rasa.
Rasa. Rasa. Or rasa. It's very short actually. It's not rasa. If you combine it with the amrita, then you have two as. So that's a different thing. So rasa means what? Taste. Taste, flavor, like the flavor of something. But as we're talking here, the next word really defines ras. What's the third word in the title? Amrita. So somebody offer some point on amrita. Actually, amrita consists of two parts.
Eternal? Yes,
but it actually focuses on the eternal nature of transcendence or the spiritual. But it means eternal. But it means what is the ultimate. When we say that the soul, how do we describe the soul? In Sanskrit, the quality of the soul. There's three words. Sat, which means eternal, and Chit means fully aware. Chit, fully aware, unfettered by the influences of material nature. The soul is Chit, fully aware, fully conscious. Limited conscious compared to Krishna, but Chit. And then the third?
Ananda.
That big word. Ananda. So what does Ananda mean? Bliss. Like, wow.
Bliss.
A full saturation of being that transposes anything else, displaces anything else, is inconceivable. Even one drop of Ananda is enough to make us mad. Like crazy. is the highest intoxicant, but leaves none of the inebrities of intoxication. Just gets. So Bhakti, Rasa, Amrita. So Amrita, going back to what Mataji said, which was eternal, if we take the first sound, in Sanskrit we don't say letters actually. They're aksharas, but actually aksharas mean sounds, if you take it more scientifically. So the first sound is in. A means what in Sanskrit? You put an a before something,
No.
like avidya. What is vidya means what?
Avidya.
And avidya means that's which is lacking. It's, yes, without. Lacking without. So amrita means no death. And mritya means die. Pava, bhava, ma. This is the vargas in Sanskrit. And ma means, ma stands for mrityu in that sense. When we study the aksharas, what's the root meaning of each of the vargas? So ma, the beginning of that varga is mrityu, or death. Anyway. So amrita means, and death means that which is, death doesn't actually mean that singular act of dying. That actually, when we say something's martya loka, this is also called martya loka, the place where temporality. Death also can mean, we can understand temporality means it's temporary. There's no eternality. So amrita. And then it also means without any flavor. You know, it can also impose, indicate that there's no flavor. Amrit is tasteless. It's very transitory, and everything in it is transitory. Every action in this material world. I was just listening to, I don't even remember where it is. I was just listening to some talk on the body, and they were talking that every day how many cells die in this body? This body composes, the total number of cells in this body is debates, but something like 75 trillion. So how many, and there's actually out of those 75 trillion, there's something like half of them are visitors, they're visitors from other systems. This is a system, different bacteria, and positive and negative, they're independent, semi-independent living entities. They're floating around in the mucus and the bile and the blood and all these things. Or there might even be in the, cancer is not one of them, by the way. Cancer is our own cell gone crazy. It's like ISIS or... Anyway, so every day 1 trillion cells die. 1 trillion cells. We are living in Amrit. Imrit. We are living without Amrita. So Amrit. We are living without it. It's so impermanent. 1/3 of our, in 1 month all the cells are going to die. There are some cells that live on, but our own cells, 1 month, they're all going to die. Some live a few months. So our situation is very impermanent. So therefore our happiness is, if our situation is very impermanent, then our happiness is yes. And our knowledge is very impermanent. So we have only vidyam cha yasyasta vedo ubhayamsa. So avidya vidya. It just goes. Vidya stays, avidya doesn't. So I wanted to, so the Prabhupada talks about various things throughout his literature, and he's described the methods of the importance of reading his books. And one of the ways that he described reading his books is that we should scrutinizingly study them and trying to see everything from different angles of vision. Different angles of vision. So I'm not going to start giving you a river of quotations, simple and basic. So everything that we do, there's 9 forms of devotional service. Does anybody remember how it's a quotation from various of the Mahajans have said it. It's in the Bhagavatam. It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it's in one of our songs. And how does it go? The different. What's the first one? Shravana. So although it is said, and we have the examples of different devotees who simply by one or more of the 9 processes, they became perfect in their Krishna conscious activities. It means they became completely and purely adept at pleasing Krishna. So, and then there is some like Ambarish Maharaj. He was expert in all 9 forms of devotional service. And there are different examples. So Shravana, who is the person who is given the example of Shravana?
Parikshit Maharaj.
Yes. And also Shukadeva Goswami achieved perfection simply by hearing. Those who are Matajis, just imagine that you had a child you were reading Bhagavatam to your child, and the child was so happy the child didn't want to come out. Or you read Krishna book to the child, because that's what we should do, because they are a person, they're devotees, or potentially devotees. And they didn't want to come out for 16 years. When Shukadeva Goswami, of course, is transcendental and his body doesn't have to be limited by space. But how long? He's 16 years. He was a fully matured person at 16. So that quite an incredible experience. He loved hearing so much that he didn't want to be bothered with anything in the material world. And when he came out, what did he do? What did Shukadeva Goswami do, the son of Vedavyas? Yeah, how did he leave home? I mean, what was his mood of leaving home?
He didn't show any affection.
Yes, but what was his mood of leaving home? He ran as fast as he could, and he was going to get away from any attachment. And then who chased him? His father, Srila Vedavyas. And he was just chasing him, and they ran through many villages, and they ran through many forests. And in one of the villages, near one of the villages, there was a stream, and there were some young maidens bathing. And in the villages, the maidens, they'll have a separate place. My experience was most of the places are like 1 mile away, and they'll be without any clothing, because only they're amongst themselves. No man, no gentleman, nobody will come there. They'll give them their respect. They're bathing. Just don't bother them. There's no showers in the house or anything. And how did the girls respond to Srila Vedavyas?
They covered themselves.
Yes. Because even though he was a fully liberated soul, Shakti Avatar, he had no impurities. But he appeared to be a grihastha. But when Shukadeva Goswami, a 16-year-old boy, in his prime, when he passed through, what was the response of the lady?
They didn't bother him.
Yeah, just like another lady. He was free of any material vision. He only had this Brahmana vision, Brahmanda vision, that everybody is part of Krishna. So I thought to read a little bit from one of the chapters. This book is very valuable. In that chapter where Srila Prabhupada is mentioning the 64 things that will become obstacles in our devotional life, there's something mentioned that one should not read too many books, one should not open temples, too many temples, one should not have too many disciples, and there's some commentary each. Disciples means those who are unfit, although there's a kindness and mercy. And I don't know if I'll have time, just keep it to 1:30, but I used to be Srila Prabhupada was not only my guru, he was also my GBC, he was my temple president, he was my temple commander, he was nitty-picky about everything with me, but not in a way to make me crazy. And he came, as I said, 18 times, and then when I was other places, he discussed everything. When I went to Bombay to meet him on January 5th, 1973, I came and, all these devotees there, most of them there, like in our movement, senior to me. Even someone who's 3 weeks is senior to you. Like, you give them special respect. You let them go first. You give them prasadam. These were like 1 or 2 years senior to me. And so I came, and Giriraj and Jamal were there, and others. They organized the program. We had something in June, and they had put up a thing, and I notice everything. It's kind of a trait. I just notice things. But, so I came in the room, and after exchanging greetings, and Srila Prabhupada asked me about my welfare. Then he said, "So, what do you think? How are things going on here?" So I was a little hesitant. He says, "What, did you see anything that needs improvement, correction?" So I was a little hesitant, but Srila Prabhupada asked me. So I had noticed that they're, renting a shed instead of buying one. It was a land that we were purchasing, and the pots were very black. And so I mentioned a few things. Food, prasadam, was being wasted. So Srila Prabhupada squared off and looked at me and he said, "So, what are you going to do about it?" One of Srila Prabhupada, we have explicative words in every language, or explicative phrases that are not palatable, we shouldn't say in front of anybody, especially children, or if it's a man in front of a lady. But in Srila Prabhupada's vocabulary, his number one explicative was bureaucracy. He didn't expect that we, attack the social structure or the administrative structure of our movement, but not that we point fingers at the administrators and say, "See what they're doing wrong." Of course, they may be doing wrong, and they should correct themselves, but rather than first be pointing the finger, "See what they're doing wrong, see what they're doing wrong," we should say, "Prabhuji, can I give a humble suggestion? I could help you with this." And so, bureaucracy. Even the person's completely wrong. And I experienced a situation a few years later in which a person was, Prabhupada had come to Hyderabad, and this person who was there before, he was undoing everything I was doing that Srila Prabhupada had asked me to do when we agreed in the meeting. And he was undoing it. And when I pointed it out to Srila Prabhupada, said, "What is this he is doing this? You have to say we. We are not," and what was Prabhupada's favorite explicative? "We are not a bureaucracy." And I thought, "Oh no, what can I do? How will I resolve this?" Then I won't tell you what he said, because then you'll take it the wrong way. And it might not be that chapter might not be in the book when I first bring it out. It's a chapter that I don't want to write. I don't want the book to be delayed. So but it will be published sometime. What Prabhupada's resolution was for me very surprising, and I'll tell it some other time when people won't misunderstand that they shouldn't do it. Anyway, let's read this little section. It's chapter 10, entitled Techniques of Hearing and Remembering. So, Srinavatam Swa Katha Krishna. Punya Shravanam Kirtana. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam. Srinavatam Swa Katha Krishna. What's the word Srinavatam means? Shravana, Srinavatam, Swa. Shravana. You hear. So the technique of hearing is all important. How we hear, And our mind should be making inquiry. Our mind, Brahma Atato Jignas. Jignas, there are 4 types of, and we can be mixed. 1, 2, 3, or 4 can be in us when we approach Krishna initially, and our devotion is mixed and not yet clear, and our process is not yet, our objectives are not yet clear. That may continue on for a very long time. So, Srinavatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravanam Kirtana. So this punya, this piety, Shravanam Kirtanam, then you can chant very nice. Ridhanta Sarabhadani. So all the abhadras, impurities of the heart, they go away. And then we get clarity because we're naturally clear. It's like a terrible cloud covering us of ignorance. So, mercy of Guru and Krishna, Krishna is ready to do this within, and the Guru says, hey, this is what you do. So if we don't know what to do, then we're going to go by the direction of our mind. And what's the thing that we learn from the Bhagavad Gita about our mind? What's the primary tendency of the mind to the conditioned living entity? It is...
Very restless.
Yes, but more specifically. Huh? No. It is primarily our enemy. Our worst enemy. Our worst possible enemy. Can you imagine an enemy who knows everything you're thinking? Can you imagine an enemy who knows everything you want, everything you've ever thought, everything you do, all of your weaknesses and all your strengths, and it will prey on your weaknesses and weaken your strengths? And the worst thing is, you think that enemy is you. My God, someone's really taken over my head. Whispering. So that's, imagine, they call it fifth column, where someone comes and, they talk about it in spy things, where someone goes in police, they go undercover and they become, and sometimes those people, they go undercover and they think they are there, but they have to actually get it. It's like an actor. But they're acting as if they're, party to the worst thing. But the mind doesn't have it act. It is given the order by Maya Devi to sabotage us in every way, not to get free of this material nature. So the mind is considered our worst enemy, or as Prabhu said, if we can conquer our mind, it can become
Your best friend.
our best friend. Right, Nanda Prabhu? Our best friend. I can be our worst enemy or our best friend. We have to look at our mind. We have to look at ourselves different than our subtle body, and we have to look at our mind as being the core of that subtle body, the manifestation by which that subtle body controls us. And we have to kind of, say, mind, you sit in that chair over there. No, I'm not my mind. You sit there and be quiet. And now we're going to have a little talk. Because wherever you go, I go. Wherever you go, I go. We're stuck with each other. So now we're going to have this little talk. So I'm going to be your best friend, my mind. Because I'm going to introduce you to, what is that? Third word? Bhakti Ras Amrita. I'm going to introduce you to Amrit, something that is so incredibly rasamriti, incredible taste. You want to be happy, my mind? Yes? Okay. So from this day on, you're not going to whisper in my head, I'm going to tell you what to do. And if you tell me something contrary to Krishna consciousness, what are we going to tell our mind?
Sit in the chair and be quiet.
Yep, zip it up. Sew it up. Now they make a duct tape. I saw this advertisement someplace that is like 12 times stronger than any previous duct tape. So we're going to tell our mind, I don't know the brand, it's something rather. So you know what? I got this duct tape, and I'm going to tape your mouth and it will never come off. So we can have conversations, but only about what?
Krishna.
Shanavatam Swakatam. Now you engage. And now we're best of friends. Our mind can be really helpful to us. What does the mind do? What is the function of the mind? I went over this one other time.
To think.
Thinking. So what did Srila Prabhupada make the summarization that what is the essence of Krishna consciousness? And he made it so simple but profound. He said, we can summarize Krishna consciousness in one sentence. To always think of Krishna. And?
Never forget.
Yes, to think or remember. And never forget. So, then we need the cooperation of who? Our mind. So unfortunately, right now we're in a schizophrenic situation. We think that our mind is different than us. We think we are our mind. Hello, this is not the way it works. We have to say, I will not be diverted from Krishna consciousness. Who's boss here now? Who's the boss here? But we better be a good boss. So that's going to depend upon how well we hear. So let us hear this technique of hearing from Srila Prabhupada. The beginning of Krishna consciousness and devotional service is hearing, in Sanskrit called Shravana. All people should be given the chance to come and join devotional parties so that they may hear. This hearing is very important for progressing in Krishna consciousness. There are other many hundreds of points in which that is the quintessence of all activities in devotional service. When one links his ears to give oral reception to the transcendental vibrations, he can quickly become purified and cleansed in the heart. Lord Chaitanya has affirmed that this hearing is very important. It cleanses the heart of the contaminated soul, that it becomes quickly qualified to enter into devotional service. We have to become qualified to enter into devotional service. We're all renegades, we're all criminals, we're not qualified to even leave the prison, what to speak, to act in a glorious way. The devotee's position is most glorious. So we have to become qualified to enter into devotional service and understand Krishna consciousness. It doesn't happen automatically. We have to become qualified to understand. Guru and Krishna's mercy is there, but we have to become qualified for that. Yatevam prapachate tam sataya vipajannam. We have to take the first step of trying our best, even though it's a humble best, to become qualified. In the Garuda Purana, the stress on hearing is expressed very nicely. It is said there that the state of conditioned life in the material world is just like that of a man lying unconscious, having been bitten by a snake. This is because such unconscious states can be ended by the sound of a mantra. When a man is snake-bitten, he does not die immediately, but first becomes unconscious and remains in a comatose condition. Anyone who is in the material world is also sleeping, as he is ignorant of his actual self, or his actual duty, and his relationship with God. So materialistic life means that one is bitten by the snake of Maya, illusion, and thus without any Krishna consciousness is almost dead. Now the so-called dead man, bitten by a snake, can be brought back to life by the chanting of some mantra. There are expert chanters of these mantras who perform this feat. Similarly, one can be brought back into Krishna consciousness from the deadly unconsciousness of material life by hearing of what? The Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 29th chapter of the verse 40, the importance of hearing of the pastimes of the Lord is also stated by Shukadev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. My dear king, one should stay at a place where the great acharyas, holy teachers, speak about the transcendental activities of the Lord, and one should give oral reception to the nectarine river flowing from the moonlight faces of such great personalities. If someone eagerly continues to hear, this word eagerly is very important. We can see how we are, like a machine functions, and there are various indicators like cars. I gave the example of a radio. We can tell that the radio is properly tuned by the way that we get the reception. And we can tell how well our things by indicators. So there are indicators that we have to learn to observe how nicely we're tuning ourselves to the process of Krishna consciousness. And the number one indicator is what? What was that word that I'm talking about?
Eagerness to hear?
Yes. If we hear from those flowing into our ears, I'm sorry. If one gives oral reception to the sound vibrated by great devotees and chariots, that alone would give him relief from material contamination. Therefore, it is recommended by Lord Chaitanya to simply hear from authorities who are actually devotees of the Lord. Hearing from professional men will not help. If we hear from those who are actually realized, then the nectarine rivers, like those which are flowing on the moon planet, will flow into your ears. This metaphor used in the above verse. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, a materialistic person can give up his material happiness only by becoming situated in Krishna consciousness. Unless one finds a superior engagement, he will not be able to give up his inferior engagement. In the material world, everyone is engaged in the illusory activities of the inferior energy. But when one is given the opportunity to relish the activities of the superior energy performed by Krishna, then he forgets his lesser pleasures. So these words, eager and relish, we should pay attention. How eager, how relishable are all the activities of devotional service. We can measure our material attractions by the same thing. We can measure someone's material attraction, they're looking at something, and then we can see the mind is thinking, and then it has some eagerness, and then it wants to do something. Well, first it pays attention to it, but there's no eagerness, it doesn't feel there's any invitation to enjoy. To relish, to feel pleasure. So the eagerness is not there. There are many things we'll see when we're walking down the street, especially in India. On the sides of the street, there are many, semi-solid objects, and we'll be seeing them, and then we'll say, I'm not very eager to step there, It's quite disgusting, as a matter of fact. But to a dog, that's very relishable. That's why dogs, swarid, they eat that same thing, that they put out at the other end. They'll go and eat it. Quite disgusting. that's their taste. So the higher taste is we should measure how much am I evolving? How much is my spiritual consciousness, my Krishna consciousness evolving so that it's a natural proclivity for me for that higher taste. Natural. So, and everything, it's amrita. There's no end for this rasa. In fact, the clue is that rasa becomes what? The more that one is properly attuned in Krishna consciousness, the more that taste, Sindhu, increases. What is that prayer? Lord Chaitanya, who is the Supreme Personality of God Himself entirely, Swayam Avatar, He is completely Krishna. Not 94% like Lord Ram, who is also completely Krishna, but He doesn't exhibit in that form. Krishna doesn't exhibit in that form. 4 of His 64, categories of opulence. Krishna has billions of categories of opulence. So, what is Lord Chaitanya? Ananda Mudi. Ananda means? Mudi. Ananda Mudi. Vardhanam. Pratipadam. Prati means every little bit. Prati. Yes. Pratipadam. And then the next. Purna Amrita. Completely nectarine. Swadhanam. Sarvatma Snapanam. Param Vijay. So this should be our own self-reflection. How am I doing in my Krishna conscious life? Am I situated 10%, 5%, 90%, 99%, 1%, or maybe today 0%, that everything in connection with Krishna, especially Shravana, is just so nice. Not just nice, but nicer and nicer and nicer. Patipadam Purnamrita Svada. Swadishta. We say Swadishta. Swadish means really delectable. When something's, we'll say, of course, I don't want to, so many Indian languages, so I sometimes make it Swadishta. If someone is served Swadish, how do you say in Bengali? Anek Swadish?
Swadish is not a Bengali.
Huh?
Swadish is not a Bengali word.
It's not there in Bengali, but in Sanskrit.
Yeah.
So those who speak Sanskrit, when they speak Bengali, they'll use, like in Telugu, Swadishtam. There's, when you speak with educated people, Swadishta. Very Swadishta. So the taste is so nice. But yesterday, I had that. Yesterday, I heard that, and it was so nice. But today, I'm hearing this. I'm reading this verse, these words from Srila Prabhupada. And last day, it was just opening so much, pushing away so much ignorance. It was opening up so much, understanding. And it was so pleasurable. But today, I think, yesterday I was half asleep. Maybe 90% asleep. And yesterday, I don't know, I was so distracted. It was nice. Now it's incredible. 10 times better. And yesterday I heard this pastime about Mother Yashoda and her friends. They get together and they're having a little consultation. They bring their friends, bring Krishna and Balaram before their mother and scolding them. You have to control your children. They're just completely out of hand. They're creating so much chaos. So much chaos. They are just disturbing us all. Our one of our most treasured things, our yogurt from which we ultimately make ghee, which is very essential for our life and our religiosity. these children, they're just taking it and spoiling it. And we hide it in dark places. And yet, what was their complaint? The mothers, the gopis, the mothers of Krishna's and Balaram's friends, what was their complaint and their request to Mother Yashoda? Yes. What was the cause of their effulgence, according to the vision of the gopis? The jewels, because Mother Yashoda, she was a queen of Vrindavan in that sense, Nanda Maharaj. So Krishna had, he'd go off into the fields with a crown, and kids were all quite rich, they had just real jewels. And if you've ever seen a real jewel, it really almost can shine in the dark. And if you see real jewels, they're supposed to be shining in the dark. I've seen jewels that I never saw them in the dark, but I've seen them. They're like, really, you can't believe it. They're iridescent. So what did they suggest to Mother Yashoda? To take off all of those jewels, thinking that Krishna couldn't see in the dark.
Then they said, never mind.
Yes, but when Mother Yashoda agreed, then they said, oh, that would be cruel. He looks so beautiful with these crowns. So one time we hear that, it's so nice, And we feel after we hear something about Krishna, either Krishna's direct pastimes or recitation from Bhagavad Gita or anything in connection with Krishna. It's so nice, we can just be transcendental to all the difficulties. One of my he's half a godbrother. He's second initiation by one of my godbrothers, first by Prabhu. He was telling me all these different problems, this person and that person. I said, my God, how your head can stand all of this. All these people call him and tell him, and he's sitting there, and I could see, I said, what do you do? He says, well, at the end of the day, I worship my deities. He's like all gone. His devotional service. I said, still, it's not good to have all of that in your head. So just a touch of Krishna consciousness, all of these anxieties, they're free if I put them. But the next time I read it, and then I think, wow, I hadn't even touched that. So that should be the measure. How nice everything is for us, not in our sense of our pleasure, but how much we relish it. And not just Srinavatam, and then becomes, what I hear, then I can speak. Srila Prabhupada said that his only credit was, does anybody remember? That he never
Never changed what his spiritual masters said.
Yes, he never changed what his spiritual master said. He never said anything that he had not heard from his spiritual master. He never changed it. And he never said anything he had not heard. So, Srinavatam Swa Katha, then you speak. Not that, well, it might be like this, and it might be like this. I feel it like that. Who's feeling like that? That's your mind. Give me a break. Well, socially it's not acceptable. Socially it's unacceptable. Whoa, give me a break. Yes, we can try to fit it in. But, there's going to be everything in Krishna consciousness that doesn't fit in. There was a point that my mother actually liked Krishna consciousness, but she didn't want me to be Krishna conscious. It was something. So, she was really trying to annoy me, and, So she finally looked at me and she had said, my son is dead, he's gone to heaven. It's like, whoa, it's like almost material suicide, the things that we're doing, Now things have changed from, say, 1960s when Prabhupada came, Most people, even now, many people, especially here in the South, if you say, you're going to go one day without something from an animal, that's like, whoa, too much. No bacon, no pig fat mixed with my vegetables, no little bit of something mixed in the mashed potatoes, or even in the bread. They put fish in some of the bread. I'd never heard of that. So, it's like death, like no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. Whoa, how are you going to have happiness? And it's like, that's the beginning of happiness, to get free of these 4 things that are causing us death. These trillion cells in our body, when we're eating meat, and they actually die and then multiply. So that's really what's happening. So there's 1 trillion deaths in a month and 1 trillion births. They kind of keep the status quo. Cells don't become bigger. This isn't like one big cell, you know. Spiritually, it's like that. There is one soul, you know. The body is the soul. Just like Krishna, he is himself, you know. So we are self-spiritual. So it's just dying, you know. And we're just enjoying the death. And that's pretty crazy, you know. That's pretty crazy to be enjoying the death. Because this is a situation of insanity. So the key for everything is hearing nicely and letting that hearing penetrate the heart and grasping the hearing as Krishna entering into our consciousness, into our heart, and inviting Krishna to saturate our entire being and to enlighten us and free us from the restrictions of engaging in unalloyed pure devotional service. We must invite Krishna into our heart. He's there already, but we must invite him. Please come and be my Lord, Master. Completely make me helpless, that I have no other shelter than you. And everything in devotional service hinges on this nice hearing. It is the touchstone, it is the cornerstone, it is the seed, it is the source of everything. There are 9 forms, but it's all resting upon this. Someone is asked to do some service. Clean the floor. I just clean the floor. That's not a very, wow, you know, what is that? No, but the devotee sees, wow, I'm just so lucky today. You know, and asked to clean Krishna's floor. No conditioned soul will have the chance to clean Krishna's floor. A conditioned soul will not be able to do anything in connection to Krishna. So somehow, I heard someone ask me, please clean Krishna's soul. I heard nicely. I think, wow, I'm the most fortunate person in this universe. It's more fortunate to be asked to clean this floor than to be given all the wealth of all the top 10 business people in the world. That's more fortunate. Wow, cleaning Krishna's floor. I can't imagine anything more, or any form of devotional service. It's so nice, it's so refreshing. And each time it's saying, whoa, last time I cleaned the floor and it looked pretty good, but this time I'm going to really do a good job. That's nectar. Every aspect of devotional service is nectar. Nectar of devotion. Anyway, let us always be utsahan nischayat. Let us always be enthusiastic for devotional service. Any questions quickly before prasadam? Questions?
I think there are a lot of questions, but we'll all be perfectly
Everyone's too eager for prasadam? Is it okay? Yes?
Could you tell us what is like impetus to do the devotional service? How do we feel inspired to do it?
Hearing.
Hearing.
But proper hearing. It's the technique of hearing. The technique of hearing is oral reception, as Srila Prabhu explains. Eagerness. With desire to hear. As soon as I think, I know everything. As soon as I think, I don't like this word, but I'm going to use it because it's commonly used, and I have no objection, but I don't like it because it has a connotation that people become distracted with. I've become advanced. I don't like the word, although it's an accurate word, sure, probably. I'm an advanced devotee. Well, you know, what is that, you know? Advanced devotee. You know, whoa, what is this advanced devotee? Everything is so the attitude of hearing is key. That, wow, you know, this is so, I'm so fortunate. It's so nice. and how we apply the hearing. Like in the verse, Tadvidi paripratana pariprasana seva upadekshanti te jnaninas tattvadarshana. So that pariprashan means questions, but it doesn't just mean questions, it means relevant questions. Question means, how do I apply this Krishna consciousness? As I'm trying to, we should look at the indicators and say, oh, I'm very fortunate, I've been doing this for some time, I'm getting some faith, I'm staying around, it's becoming more meaningful, but I have so many ways I can improve. And the indicators are. I'll start to, like in the spiritual world, people feel jealous of each other. But if we have tinge of the material, that jealousy becomes something very different. In the spiritual world, when one devotee is jealous of the other, they're thinking, wow, they were asked to clean the floor, or they went and cleaned the floor, and it's so incredible, I have to learn from it. Because I've been cleaning the floor, and I used to think it's good, but now, whoa, it doesn't compare, Like everybody used to say I was the best person at cleaning the floor, but when I saw this person cleaning the floor, so that's a kind of jealousy. But it's a transcendental jealousy, free from any envy. The other person becomes our inspiration. Chanakya Pandit says that one can take lessons from whom? The sweeper in the street. No material qualification, less class. We assume, poor, uneducated, they have to deal with so much trash and bad things, especially when you see the old streets, so much stuff is there. What I was talking about in India, so many things wind up in the streets. And they're touching that, so they don't have a very pure life. But we can learn so many lessons, not just one. We can learn lessons from everyone that will help us in our progress in Krishna consciousness, which we can measure in so many ways. How will I progress in Krishna consciousness? It should be very vivid. All the ways that I can progress, all the ways. And not just something vague, but something very specific, and there are techniques that are not mechanical. And the best thing is the right association, and associating in the right way. Associating in the right way. And that right way is to be really eager to improve ourselves. And the enemy of improving ourselves is what? This is the last point. What's the biggest enemy of improving ourselves in devotional life?
Complacency?
Yes, but that's part of something else. The mind, but how does the mind specifically manifest itself? What did I say is a word I don't like to use, even though it's very active? Advance. Oh, pride. Pride precedeth the fall. Oh, I am really, and they say the pauper is proud of his penny. I'm a really big, important devotee, everybody should respect me. And as soon as we even get that smallest glimmer of that, instead of realizing, whoa, I'm so defective. At any moment I can be stripped away of Krishna consciousness. It's just, whatever it is, it's just Krishna and Guru and devotees' kindness to me. I might have been known as the best cook in the world. But then when we go to cook, the realization, the understanding will be, wow, whatever I've done in the past was only the mercy of Radharani, Srimati Radharani, Srimati Rukmini Devi, and Srimati Yashoda. That's their mercy on me through my spiritual master. That the cooking was a little pleasing to Krishna. But then the devotee thinks, whoa, but I want to cook in such a way that Krishna is going to come and eat it. Impossible, yet that's the desire of the devotee, to be pleasing to Krishna, something impossible, yet by the mercy of the devotees, they'll learn to do that. They'll be empowered to do that. We may not even be able to talk to a stranger, but then the spiritual master asks us to go and speak to the biggest people in the world. And we simply learn the process of taking the mercy by realizing our own very insignificant position. The biggest mark for a devotee to understand that they're in the right direction is to understand more and more clearly, day by day, that they are insignificant. Only as much as I comprehend, not in the mind or with words or vocabulary, but comprehend in my essence of my being that I'm insignificant. That, in proportion to that, then I'm going to be able to understand Krishna's significance, Krishna's brilliance. How wonderful is Krishna? How wonderful is Krishna? And as much as I understand my insignificance, then I will understand that without Krishna consciousness, I am the opposite of wonderful. Prabhu said Krishna consciousness is that you become Krishnized, just like the fire is thrust, the dead lump of metal is thrust, the dead lump of metal which is cold and dark is thrust in the fire and takes on all the attributes of the fire. So similarly, a devotee, by the mercy of Vaishnavas, becomes in contact with Krishna and becomes Krishnized. And being Krishnized, the devotee will say, whoa, I'm so insignificant. As we sing in the prayer, your mercy is all I need. And that mercy can be taken away any second. And that mercy has to be swept up every second. I need your mercy to do this. Pride means I don't need your mercy to do it. The opposite of pride, whatever you want to say, is to know that I am completely dependent, completely helpless without the mercy of my Guru and Krishna. Without the mercy of my Guru, Krishna, and the Vaishnavas, I am not capable of pleasing Krishna. It is not mechanical. It is not a propriety. Although it is our birthright to please Krishna, we're part of Krishna, but it is not our birthright. We're in this material world. Our birthright is death. Our birthright is ignorance. Our birthright is suffering. So by the mercy of Krishna, always, you see the reaction of Mother, I'm sorry, I'm extending, but we should scrutinizingly study the books and look at it from every angle. And when we're doing that, and we look at the excellent characteristics of the devotees, we want to emulate that. Not imitate, emulate. And we study in characteristics of Srila Prabhupada or those who tried to help Srila Prabhupada. And then when we go up, and, it doesn't take away from them, because the stars are reflecting the moon, so to speak, or they reflect the sun. The moon is reflecting the sun. So the total illumination is there in the qualities of the devotees, how their mentality of pleasing Krishna and how humble they are. You see, they never take it for granted that Krishna, sometimes they do, and as soon as they take it for granted that Krishna is theirs, what's the next thing that will happen to them? When the gopis start thinking, or even Srimati Radharani, who is Krishna's direct manifestation, that finally manifests as Lord Chaitanya. When Krishna wants to understand his manifestation as Radharani, then he directly becomes Lord Chaitanya. But then Krishna enters in. So Radharani, she'll sometimes think, oh, Krishna is mine. And then, whoop, where's Krishna? What did I do? So this is on a very exceedingly profound and exquisite level. Radharani can't be affected by Maya. Her expansion is Maya. But it's understanding. See how humble all these devotees are. See how in their heart of hearts, they're only thinking themselves the most insignificant of all devotees. It's not something in the mind, I read it in the book, and I think I'm, the most insignificant of devotee. I'm insignificant, I'm humble. It's not like that. We have to embrace it in our heart by realization, by seeing our own characteristics, but not being trapped by the mind of being stuck in our things, but to
see how to improve. It's not a favorable situation for serving Krishna. The devotee just wants to put themselves in a favorable situation for serving Krishna, which includes begins with, ends, and is always including how we improve ourselves. And the devotee rejects all situations that won't prove favorable. And the most unfavorable is think that I am a big shot. A big, because I have this title or that title, or I've been around so many years, okay. That stove's been around so many years too. Whoopie-doo, That tree's been around, whoopie-doo. So, whoopie-doo. Maybe I've been around 52 years, but maybe, 52 years I've almost wasted my time. What have I done? Anyway, thank you all very much. We're all blessed so much by Guru and Krishna. Hare Krishna. You can bless me that I can finally finish this book on Srila Prabhupada. Hopefully my editor, who is now going to become, actually I'm going to put her as the writer of the book, because there are things that I can't express, that she better just do the biography, and with me as the co-writer, because people might object to this. So we're going to work every day to get, hopefully, this book out, which will really help us to see what a magnificent and inspiring person Srila Prabhupada is. More that we look closely, if we feel insignificant, more we will be inspired. And if we look closely and when we don't feel we're insignificant, we will just make offensive and become proud. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the assembled devotees. Sorry, Yogi.